Hi everyone, and welcome to my home kitchen. My name is Charlotte Ree, and I am here to show you how to make one of my favorite dessert recipes from my first cookbook, Just Desserts, which you can find at your local Dymocks or online. If you have it at home and you're playing at home, the recipe's on page 36. But I know, and sorry, that was my mum texting me. You will be able to see the ingredients up on the page very soon. So today we are going to make one of my favorite recipes. It's a little French butter cake that stole my heart. It's a Madeleine, and they're Honey Madeleines. For me, just so you that don't know me get to know a little bit about me, I started baking as a way to unwind from my full-time job at which I worked for a book publisher, keeping it in the book family. And it was a way to de-stress sometimes at 1 a.m. in the morning. And what I found was that it took me back to basics. It made me have to switch off my phone and concentrate on the task at hand and not be distracted by work, and not be distracted by TV or the news or Instagram, which I do spend far too much time on. And it was also a great way to have a delicious treat very quickly. And I'm someone that loves to show love through food. At the moment, in the times of coronavirus, I do that with my neighbours as a way to gift some treats to them. But it really is just a way for me to, show love and feed people, and Madeleines are a perfect way to do that. I had a friend come over the other night who said, "Can we have something sweet?" And so in 30 minutes, as you're about to see tonight, we had made and baked Madeleines. So Tim is behind the scenes here. A huge thank you to him for making this possible. He's about to show you the ingredients. And we'll put these up as well. They're on the Dymocks website, and I'll put them on my Instagram for you guys to see. But we have 125 grams unsalted butter, which I have melted already, just because I don't know how to show it to you, but we all know what melted butter looks like. And we're going to add 3 tablespoons of honey to that. And it doesn't matter which honey you use. I just have one from my favorite cafe here that I like, but I also have an Aldi one in my cupboard that I love as well. And you want to let the butter, you want to take it, melt it, and then take it off the heat and let it cool. And I'm just going to stir in the honey, and then we're going to set that aside. In the meantime, we've got 2 eggs at room temperature, and a few things I wanted to tell you guys about my go-tos with baking. And one is that you read the recipe beforehand to make sure that you don't get halfway through when you're making cream cheese icing and realize that you needed the icing at room temperature, and lo and behold, it's not at room temperature. Also, a scale is my favorite thing. You'll see that in my book and with my recipes, all my recipes are in grams. And that's simply because they're far more accurate than cups. And the thing I love about having a scale on hand is that you can hit tar. You've added your flour, you hit tar, then you add your sugar, so you can add things in. Oh God, my mum is calling me. Sorry. She's a pest. So we are going to put the eggs at room temperature into the mixing bowl. And you're also going to add in 50 grams of caster sugar. And I do say in my book, don't crack your eggs straight away into whatever you're doing, because you don't know if you have a bad egg, and you don't know if you're going to add a shell into your egg. But here there was nothing else in the bowl, so I just cracked it straight in. And you're going to turn your stand mixer on, and you just want that to get till it's light and fluffy. If you don't have a stand mixer, you can use hand beaters, but you can also use, you can do it by hand, but it would be much more exhausting and time intensive, I think. So give me 1 sec while we just whisk this together. Okay, so they've gotten pale and fluffy now. I could, in all honesty, let them go for a little while longer, but there's only so long that you guys want to watch me doing a mixing dance too. So now we're going to add in here I have 100 grams of plain flour that I've already sifted and a teaspoon of baking powder that I've already sifted. The reason why I sift it is because Madeleines are very light and very fluffy. And what I use to sift is this giant little sifter at hand. There are little ones, or there are the ones that you can, you know, they're kind of cylindrical and you pump the handle, but they're too time consuming. And this I just love because within 4 or 5 taps, you've already sort of sifted what you needed to. So we're going to add that into the mixture, as well as your butter and honey, which you will have done before. And we're not going to beat it with the KitchenAid mixer again. So what we're going to do instead is get a spatula of some description, and you just want to fold. And the reason being is that with your eggs before, you're creating quite a bit of air when you mix them, and we don't want to lose that aeration when we fold in the flour, because yeah, the Madeleines are very light and very fluffy. They're unlike any other little cake that you've had before. So we're just going to fold that together, just a few quick turns. And then you might be able to see we have our batter ready to go. The thing I probably should have started this recipe with was by saying that you need a special pan called a Madeleine pan when you're baking. There have been some wizards on Instagram that have shown me that they can make it with a mini muffin tin. But the thing with that is this pan is specifically made for a Madeleine. If you make it in the mini muffin tin, all the power to you, but it's not going to have the same consistency and the same feel. So these pans you can pick up very cheaply, like $15 from a kitchen shop. And yeah, this is a Madeleine pan. I'm just gonna, you've seen from Tim's fantastic photos what they look like. Now, there are going to be people of the baking school of thought that say that you should butter and then flour. I'm a bit lazy when it comes to baking. Again, self-taught, not trained. I want to have like a dessert in my mouth in the quickest and fastest way possible. And when I'm greasing a cake tin, whether that's like round, springform tin, a rectangular tin, or this Madeleine tin, I get a baking spray. So this is just a canola oil spray, and I just quite literally spray the tin. Done. Now we are going to pour our batter into the tin. Just trying to get you guys a little bit of a better view. And also hoping that my mum doesn't call one more time and interrupt this podcast. There we go. I'll put it up like that. I'm just going to get the contraption. So the thing with the Madeleines is that you want to make sure that you're filling your tin up until like about the 3 millimeter gap. And the reason being is that like every cake, they rise, and particularly because we've put baking powder in this recipe, they're going to rise again. So if you do fill it up to the full capacity, they are going to create one giant hot mess, and we want to try to avoid that as much as possible. So I'm just using like a 1/4 cup measure here to put them in. Sometimes I use like a measuring jug, but I'm disorganized and didn't have that with me. So here is the 1/4 cup measure. But you can see just how easy this recipe is, and I can smell the honey like crazy. The honey that I used is rooftop honey, so it's very fragrant. And I am excited to feel what it's like to smell what it's like when it bakes. Won't be a second. Tim, are there any, sorry, something's popped up on my screen. Are there any questions that you want to go to while I just fill up this pan quite painstakingly? My favorite recipe. So I am a sucker for a pavlova. That is my go-to because I love cream and meringue and fruit all together in one. But in my book, there is a recipe for a chiffon cake, and that is like a pavlova and a cake combined into one. And that is my dream last meal kind of dessert, would would be a chiffon cake, and therefore my absolute favorite recipe. Okay, so we fill that up. I'm just going to put them now. I've preheated my oven to 170 degrees. The madeleines are in the pan, and they're going to go in the oven for 10 minutes. And the trick with these, obviously, I'm just going to put a timer on. The trick with these is that they're best eaten fresh out of the oven. So if you are making them, make sure that you have mouths ready to feed. So now, guys, while that's baking, I'm so happy to take some questions from you. And I love that there is someone in the question feed telling my mum not to call me again. Thank you so much, Robin. That is amazing. Yes, you can use Manuka honey. You can use any honey. It's honestly, it's whatever honey I have in the pantry. I just happened to open up this Urban Beehive honey the other day, which is much, as I said, I love using Aldi honey just as much. But for some reason, this was the only honey I had in my at my disposal. So yeah, use whichever honey you have. Also, it's 8 p.m, so I've got a glass of wine, guys. What was the first recipe I learned to bake? So my nanny, my mum does not have a Stepford housewife bone in her body, but my nan was the ultimate person to be with and to bake with, and together we would make jam drops. And my favorite thing to do was to put my thumb into the jam drop dough and also to lick the beaters. And even today, if I beat butter and sugar together, it's the first thing that I do, and it takes me straight back to being with my nan. Yeah, total nostalgia. And that's what I love about food and about recipes, is that they can transport you to a time and a place. Just waiting for the next one. Thank you all for being here, by the way. My favorite dessert, so different to favorite recipe, that my go-to is ice cream. And at any given time, I do maybe have 1.5 to 2 liters of ice cream in my freezer. I just love it. I love everything about ice cream. It's simple. The other day I picked up some poached or stewed peaches, I would say, from a bakery in Sydney called Flour and Stone. And I love having them with just a bit of vanilla ice cream and they're soaked in Moscato syrup. So having that together is super delicious. Sending love from the Herder family. That's my cousin Morgan, who is an avid baker. And I've been loving watching what her and her sister have been making from not only my book, but many books. It's fun to see people baking and getting creative in this time of Corona. What's the most difficult recipe that I have made? Ooh. Another reference to Flour and Stone, but it is my favourite bakery in Sydney. But Nadine Ingram has a recipe for a lemon dream, which as an aside to the chiffon could also be my deathbed cake. And it's basically a lemony sponge with a meringue on top, and then you make lemon curd and cream and then double the recipe of the sponge and the meringue, and it becomes this incredible layer of joy. But I think, yeah, I wouldn't say it's the most difficult, but it's definitely the most time consuming, because for me, if a recipe isn't, and in recipes that I make, if they're not made and done within an hour, then I don't want anything to do with them. I like the simplicity of knowing that what I'm going to do is done over and out. Can these be used for lactose intolerance? Yes, and also in my book, there is a gluten-free and dairy-free olive oil cake recipe, which is my absolute go-to for anyone that has any dietary requirements. It's incredibly moist, so you don't even feel like you're missing the milk or the butter or anything like that. So it's a fantastic recipe for that. What other Madeleines do I like to bake? So I had, my baking career sort of started with an ebook that I self-published with a photographer called Louisa Brimble. And in there I had a lime and coconut Madeleine combination, which is fantastic. But I do love the Honey Madeleines because they are beautifully sweet and offset by, if you serve them with double cream, they're fantastic. But you can also, with some Madeleines, make like with icing sugar and a little bit of lemon juice, you can make an icing and you could dip them in. But these are really my go-to Madeleine recipe. Sorry, this one's small, I'm leaning in. I find baking difficult because you have to get everything just right. Have you ever had any accidents that ended up being a success? Well, I've had many accidents that have absolutely not been a success and been an absolute disaster, like the time I didn't grease a tin, or I didn't put the spring form lock on as properly as I should have, or the cake was like 30 minutes into baking. I thought, why is there a measurement of sugar left on my bench? But my most successful failure, I would say, is brown butter or burnt butter, which was just from leaving the butter on the stove for too long. And it creates the most nutty and beautiful aroma that when you add it to cakes, oh my gosh, it's magnificent. So I have, in my book, again, product placement, I have a brown butter bundt cake, as well as a brown butter cookie recipe. And bundt cakes, for those that follow me on Instagram, are my absolute labor of love. They are so fun and fantastic, and I did so want to do one today, but unfortunately with the bundt, you do have to cook it and then let it cool completely in its tin. So we would have been here for hours yakking away. Any new pandemic baking trends I've enjoyed? Have I jumped on the cinnamon scroll bandwagon? No, I haven't jumped on the cinnamon scroll bandwagon. For me, I guess the trend that I've enjoyed is I moved just before lockdown kicked in, and I've been in my new house for about 2 months now. And what was a really beautiful thing for me was getting to know each of my new neighbors by baking them something different. So on the first day I moved in, I made banana muffins. But that has quickly progressed to doing multiple things, like an apple cake, cookies. One of my neighbors is a single mum, and so I made her cookie dough that she could freeze and pull out whenever she needed to. But for me, baking during this pandemic has been an incredible way to connect and to feel, for someone that does live alone, that I'm not so alone in this time. You're inspiring me to buy a Madeleine tin, but what can I use in the meantime? Will a cupcake tin work? Yeah, so I have had people on Instagram use a mini cupcake pan, but they will have a different texture and a different consistency, because the beauty of the Madeleine tin is that it's ridged. They're ridges, which kind of like a chiffon tin help it rise and give it this fluffy. Just checking my timer. Give it this fluffy feel. So definitely you can, but I would urge you all to get a Madeleine tin, just like $15 from a kitchen shop. I'm pretty sure that some of our discount department stores would have them as well, and you'll use it more than you know. Can I move to Geelong? They would love my samples. Well, I do think I love Geelong, first and foremost. I've been there lots of time with my work through my publishing job, but I do think my poor neighbours are getting to full capacity now. They're saying, Charlotte, you're adding us up a dress size in this pandemic, because yeah, it's not just sweets. I bake a lasagna from scratch every Saturday and seem to feed everybody. So yeah, if anyone lives in the vicinity, I'm more than happy to cater for you as well. Cookie dough is a great idea to make for someone. What dough do I recommend if I'm doing as a gift? So in my book, I have a recipe for there's a salted caramel and cookie dough, which is used with brown butter. And it's fantastic. You can make it in advance. And what I do is I just roll it up. If you could look at my latest video on Instagram as well, it's there too. You roll it up in baking paper and I write the instructions on the top. And what I would do if you are freezing it to save for later, just add a couple of minutes to the cooking time. So it would normally be about 13 minutes. I would make 15 minutes, but it's still the same. You just roll out walnut-sized balls, but you're just going to add a couple of extra minutes if it's cooking from frozen. And there's a bundt cake. Thank you, thank you, Tim. For anyone that didn't know, that is what a bundt cake looks like. And with that, I mean, again, like I was saying with the Madeleines, people do seem to spend an inordinate amount of time greasing, flouring, and buttering. And the problem with that is that the flour then creates kind of like a paste on the outside, and it can change the outside of the cake. But coming back to that cooking spray, if you spray the tin liberally, you're going to end up with a really fantastic shape, perfectly come out. Do I plan on making another cookbook? If so, it will be another desserts book. Yes, I am absolutely working on. That's been the beauty of being in isolation, is the ability to have all this extra time to work on another book. And I am absolutely working on another one, and it is desserts. I have obviously, because desserts are of no nutritional value whatsoever, I do need to eat savoury, and I'm absolutely passionate about making savoury foods, but there are fantastic other chefs and cookbook authors that have lots of savoury food up, under their belt, and I'm going to be a dessert girl for life, I think. That is the timer, guys. I'm just going to oh, great. I'm glad that you like the bundt cake, Rhonda. So our little Madeleines are out. I'm just going to get rid of some. Normally what I do instead of answering your fantastic questions while things are baking is I use it to clean. And what we're going to do here is I have a wire rack, which I'm going to put on top of, I'll just quickly show you guys, the tray like so. And then we're going to flip. Now is like when I really don't love doing live things, because I'm like, is this going to come out? Am I going to be okay? Woohoo! There we go. Oh, there's one stuck in there. But that is the result. So I tip them out straight away, and I love to eat them still warm. You can see the shape of them. I think you guys can see that. Just there. And then you can, leave them to cool, but I love to serve them while they're still warm with a dollop of cream. I'm just, oh yeah, look, thank you so much. There is the finished product right there. Are there any other questions from anybody? You can see how quick that is. Like literally when I had a friend come over the other day, and I think for some reason I forget, because I bake so often, that my friends really expect and want, they don't mind when there's not, but they really want me to have sweets for them. And so when my poor friend said, can we just have something sweet tonight? This was like the perfect thing to make. Christine says they look amazing tomorrow's bake. Yeah, it is so simple, Christine. I promise you, you're going to love it. And if you do want to keep them, I mean, they are absolutely best eaten on the day that they're made. But, you know, I wouldn't put it past me to eat these for breakfast tomorrow. What temperature was the oven? It was 170 degrees. And that's a conventional oven. I don't have a fan forced oven. And the thing I would say to you guys is that every oven is absolutely different. So trust your intuition, go by your nose. That's the best thing that Nadine Ingram taught me, was that, you know, if you smell something burning, it probably is. So just check. Can you make the batter in advance? Yep, I absolutely have. The only thing is though, because you're sifting the flour and the baking powder, it activates the baking powder. So you want to use it quite quickly. I have done them before where I've left it for an hour, but I haven't tested it beyond that, and I wouldn't recommend it beyond that. It is such an easy batter to make that, you know, it took us, we've done it and made it within 20 minutes. So I would make it as soon as you're about to bake it. Your first batch burnt. Don't know what you did wrong. It could, so as I said before, it could be that every oven's different, Rhonda. So your, hot spots could be completely different. And if that's the case, maybe try it at 160 degrees if 170 degrees was too hot. I've acquired a oven thermometer over the years, which allows me to test the temperature of the oven and where different parts of my oven are too hot. So just adjust it, check it at 8 minutes instead of 10, maybe do 160 instead of 170. So just trust your intuition and know what your oven does, because I can't know in writing a recipe, how hot your oven is or how different. Last question. Am I going to open a tea and cake shop in Perth, preferably? I love Perth so much. I've travelled a lot there for work, but I do not have the desire to open a bakery. For me, I love making recipes. I love interacting with everyone and seeing them make them and bake them at home. But I'm a little too busy doing my full-time job, I think, to open a bakery myself. There are so many great ones to eat at. And Mary Street in Perth is really fantastic. Actual last question. Okay, one more. What's the difference between a Madeleine and a cupcake? Well, I mean, first and foremost, the shape. And the tin, you definitely need the tin, but the batter as well. A lot of cupcakes have milk added to them. This one's particularly light and fluffy, and yeah, a totally different texture, I would say. Thank you for your question. Well, everyone, thank you so much. I'm really thrilled that you can join me, and thank you so much to Dymocks and Tim, especially, for all of his behind-the-scenes help. It's really nice in isolation to welcome so many of you into my home kitchen, and I'm really thrilled that you could join me. A reminder that the recipe is obviously on the Dymocks website, it's at the top of the comments on the Facebook event. This is my book, Just Desserts. It's 30 of my favorite recipes. They're all simple, easy to make, and there aren't any, fancy, overpriced ingredients. It's just like the sort of stuff that my nan used to make. So it's at Dymocks stores. And yeah, I'm really grateful to all of you for joining me and for being a part of this crazy time that we're in. It's fun to bake together and bake the most of it, so to speak. Thanks, guys.